We now continue into 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where Shaul lifts the assembly above present decay and fear, setting earthly frailty against eternal dwelling, holy courage, and judgment seat of Messiah, and the ministry of reconciliation entrusted to those who are made new in him. This chapter contains no explicit citations. Even without those citations listed, the chapter stands firmly in covenant continuity. Yehovah has always called his people to walk before him with eternity in view, to fear him rightly, and to serve as agents of peace between himself and those estranged from him. Shaul gathers those same covenant realities here and intensifies them through Messiah. We are heading toward an eternal dwelling. We must all appear before his judgment seat, and we now carry the word of reconciliation as his ambassadors. Earthly tent fading to eternal house hoped for, to courage sustained, to judgment seat remembered, to new creation declared, to reconciliation entrusted. We will walk by faith, answer to Messiah, and carry reconciliation. Yehovah, teach us to live in the light of eternity. Free us from fear that is rooted only in what is seen. Make us faithful ambassadors of Messiah's peace. Yehovah El Ha-Shalom, the God of peace who prepares an eternal dwelling and sends his people with the message of reconciliation. Yehovah El Ha-Shalom. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy. Please fill me and lead me and cover me and stir me and speak through me with your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, your set-apart breath, that it may speak your written words with boldness and humility to those who listen. I ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed One, the Aleph Nataf. His name, Amen. We'll start with the Shema. Listen and obey. Children of Yehovah, pay careful attention and respond. Yehovah is our power and authority. Yehovah works in unity, echad, with himself, and you shall act upon your love, ahava, to Yehovah with your power and authority, with your thoughts, mind, with your entire body, and with all the muchness that you have. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Hand, behold, nail, behold. 2 Corinthians chapter 5. We know that when the tent becomes we know that when the tent which houses us here on earth is torn down, we have a permanent building from God, a building not made by human hands, a house for us in heaven. For in this tent, our earthly bodies, we groan with desire to have around us the home from heaven that will be ours. With this around us, we will not be found naked. Yes, while we are in this body, we groan with the sense of being oppressed. It is not so much that we want to take something off, but rather to put something on over us, so that we must die, may be swallowed up by the life. Moreover, it is God who has prepared us for this very thing, and as a pledge, he has given us his Spirit. So we are always confident. We know that so long as we are at home in the body, we are away from our home with the Master. For we live by trust, not by what we see. We are confident then, and would much prefer to leave our home in the body and come to our home with the Master. Therefore, whether at home or away from home, we try our utmost to please him. For we must all appear before the Messiah's court of judgment, where everyone will receive the good or bad consequences of what he did while he was in the body. So it is with the fear of the Master before us that we try to persuade people. Moreover, God knows us as we really are. And I hope that in your consciences, you too know us as we really are. We are not recommending ourselves to you again, but giving you a reason to be proud of us, so that you will be able to answer those who boast about a person's appearance rather than his inner qualities. If we are insane, it is for God's sake, and if we are sane, it is for your sake. For the Master's love has hold on us, because we are convinced that one man died on behalf of all mankind, which implies that all mankind was already dead, and that he died on behalf of all in order that those who live should no longer live any longer for themselves, but for the ones who are on their behalf died and was raised. So from now on, we will not look at anyone from the worldly viewpoint, even if we once regarded the Messiah from a worldly viewpoint. We do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is united with the Messiah, he is a new creation. The old has passed. Look, what has come is fresh and new. And if it is all from God, and it is all from God, who through the Messiah has reconciled us to himself and has given us the work of that reconciliation, which is that God in the Messiah was reconciling mankind to himself, not counting their sins against them, and entrusting to us the message of reconciliation. Therefore, we are ambassadors of the Messiah. In effect, God is making his appeal through us. What we do is appeal on behalf of the Messiah. Be reconciled to God. God made this sinless man to be a sin offering on our behalf, so that in union with him we might fully share in God's righteousness. What is the Hebrew word that encapsulates this chapter? Tikvah, hope. This chapter breathes with eternal expectations, holy courage, and resurrection-minded confidence before Yehovah. Tanakh spine. Once again, there are no explicit Tanakh citations. Even so, the chapter carries clear covenant continuity. Yehovah has always been the one who prepares a dwelling for his people, weighs every life before him, and calls sinners back into peace through his appointed means. Shaul applies that enduring burden in Messiah. Earthly life is temporary. Judgment is certain. New creation is real, and reconciliation is now the urgent work of the people of God. Chapter flow. Shaul begins by speaking of the earthly tent and the present bodily life that is fragile and temporary. If this tent is destroyed, believers have from God a building not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. He describes the present state as one of groaning, longing not for naked disembodiment, but to be clothed with the heavenly dwelling. The burden is not escape from embodiment as such, but the swallowing up of mortality by life. God himself has prepared believers for this very thing and has given the Spirit as a pledge. Therefore, Shaul says that they are always of good courage. While at home in the body, they are always from the Master in the sense of visible presence, for they walk by faith, not by sight. Yet they remain courageous and would rather be away from the body and at home with the Master. Because of this, whether at home or away, their ambition is to be pleasing to him. Then the chapter sharpens, all must appear before him in the judgment seat of Messiah. So each may receive what is due for what was done in the body, rather good or bad. Knowing, therefore, the fear of the Master, Shaul persuades men. He says they are manifest to God already and hopes they are also manifest in the Corinthians' consciousness. He is not commending himself again in vanity, but giving the Corinthians ground to answer those who boast in appearance and not in heart. If it seems beside himself, it is for God. If it sounds of mine, it is for them. The love of Messiah controls them because they have concluded this: one dies for all, therefore all died. Messiah died for all so that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died and was raised for them. From now on, therefore, they regard no one according to the flesh, even if Messiah was once regarded according to fleshly categories. That is no longer the way he is known. Then comes the chapter's great declaration. If anyone is in Messiah, there is a new creation. The old is passed away. Behold, the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled them to himself through Messiah and gave them the ministry of reconciliation. In Messiah, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them. He was committed to his servants the word of reconciliation. Therefore, they are ambassadors for the Messiah, as though God was making his appeal through them. Shaul pleads on the Messiah's behalf Be reconciled to God. The chapter closes with the great exchange. God made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Morality groans, to faith walks, to judgment approaches, to love compels, to new creation rises, to reconciliation goes forth. Core theme. Shaul's burden in this chapter is to train the Corinthians to live from the unseen world rather than be ruled by present fragility. The, the body is described as a tent, real, useful, but temporary. Yet this is not a chapter of despair over mortality. It is a chapter of courage. The Spirit is already giving as a pledge, and the eternal dwelling is sure. Therefore, the servant of Yehovah can live boldly, not by sight, but by faith. But eternal hope does not lead to passivity. It leads to holy ambition. Because all will appear before Messiah's judgment seat, the believer does not drift. He seeks to be pleasing. Because the fear of the Master is real, he persuades men. Because Messiah's love has seized him, he no longer lives for himself. Hope, fear, and love are all yoked together here in a deeply covenantal way. The chapter then rises to apostolic summit, reconciliation. Those who are in Messiah are a new creation. The old order has been broken open. God has acted, not counting trespasses as they deserve, but making peace through their sin-bearing work of Messiah. And this peace is not to be admired from a distance only. It is to be carried. The people of God now move through the world as ambassadors, speaking heaven's appeal into a rebellious earth. Be reconciled to God. How can we learn to love Yehovah with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? We can love Yehovah by walking by faith and not letting visible weakness dictate what is eternally true. Love Yehovah by making it our ambition to be pleasing to Messiah in light of his judgment seat. Love Yehovah by no longer living for ourselves, but for the one who died and was raised for us. How can we learn to love our neighbors as we love ourselves and as Yeshua loves us? Speak to others as one entrusted with the ministry and word of reconciliation. Refuse to regard people merely according to the flesh when Messiah offers new creation. Plead with sincerity for others to be reconciled to God rather than remaining distant and silent. How can we bear one another's burdens? Strengthen the weary with the hope of eternal dwelling and the pledge of the Spirit. Help one another live courageously under mortality without collapsing into fear of worldly judgment. Remind one another that affliction, accountability, and mission all make sense in the light of Messiah's love and the coming judgment. What are the top 3 fruits of the Spirit found in this chapter? 1. Hope, tikvah. The chapter lifts the eyes from fading tent to the eternal dwelling prepared by God. 2. Courage, ometz. Shaul repeatedly says that they are of good courage because they walk by faith and belong to Messiah. 3. Love, ahava. The love of Messiah controls the believer and turns self-centered life into reconciliatory service. What is the mitzvah response, Torah-based? Deuteronomy 10, verse 16. Therefore circumcise the foreskin of your heart, and don't be stiff-necked any longer. Command. We will walk by faith, live for Messiah, and carry his message of reconciliation. What is the Hebrew declaration? Lo ba mar'eh, ne lech, ki im bi umunah, lefnei, Yehovah, ba Mashiach, ba Reah, kadasha, a nachnu, u shiluche, shalom, ni vachesh, leot, ritzuyim, li fanav, o lehashev, a nashim, alav. We will not walk by sight, but by faith before Yehovah. In Messiah, we are a new creation and messengers of peace. We will seek to be pleasing before him and bring people back to him. What is the one sentence summary? Walk by faith, live for Messiah, and carry reconciliation. Now, after having read the chapter and going over it, here are some heart-piercing questions. Where am I still letting what is seen rule me more than what Yehovah has promised? Another. Is it truly my ambition to be pleasing to Messiah or merely to be comfortable? Another. How often do I remember what I appear before his judgment seat? Another. In what ways am I still living for myself instead of the one who died and rose for me? Another. Do I see myself as an ambassador of reconciliation or only as a private believer? Another. Who in my life right now needs to hear the appeal, be reconciled to God? Lastly, what would walking by faith look like for me this week in a concrete, visible way? We'll end with the Arianic blessing using the name. Yehovah will kneel before you presenting gifts, and he will guard you with a hedge of protection. Yehovah will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward you, bringing order, and he'll provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yehovah lift up the wholeness of his being and look upon you, set in place all you need to be whole and complete. Shalom, shalom. We now